Welcome. You're listening because you want to stay informed efficiently.
And today we've got something significant on the radar.
Right. We're doing a deep dive into reports, mainly highlighted by the Wall Street Journal, about Russian military activity.
Specifically near Finland's border. Finland, now a NATO member, which is key context here.
Exactly. So reports are talking about a buildup. Tanks, military equipment accumulating near that border.
And these reports, the WSJ notes, are citing Western military sources, so it's coming from official channels.
Our goal today is pretty straightforward. What do these reports really suggest? And maybe, why now?
Let's unpack it. The location is, well, obviously critical, a NATO border.
Since 2023. So any military concentration there naturally gets a lot of attention.
Absolutely. Remember, an attack on one NATO member is treated as an attack on all. That's Article 5.
So the stakes are inherently higher along that particular border now.
Precisely.
Okay, beyond just the tanks and equipment, there's more, right? Infrastructure.
Yes, that's another layer. Reports mention work on a military base near Petrozavodsk. That's in the Karelia region.
Expanding it sounds like.
Expansion, yeah, and also improvements to railway lines. Other infrastructure, too, closer to that NATO frontier.
Railways are always significant for military logistics, aren't they? Moving troops, supplies.
Crucial, especially for rapid deployment or sustained presence. It suggests more than just a temporary exercise.
And the WSJ also mentioned something about Kremlin plans, new divisions.
That's right. Reported plans to establish new military divisions specifically in that area. Putting it all together, the buildup, the infrastructure, the potential new units, it points towards a more serious, maybe longer-term focus.
Now, there was a really interesting piece from a Finnish perspective mentioned in the journal.
Yes, the senior Finnish military official.
What did they observe? Something about the type of tanks.
They told the WSJ that Russia seems to be, well, holding back its newest tanks from the front lines in Ukraine.
Holding them back, but deploying older ones instead.
Apparently so. And the suggestion was that these newer, perhaps more capable tanks are being stockpiled closer to home, maybe near Finland.
Okay, so if that's true, what does that imply? Why keep your best gear away from an active war zone?
It could signal a strategic calculation, maybe preserving top-tier assets for a different potential contingency, or perhaps signaling capability towards NATO without actually deploying them in Ukraine.
That's a really interesting angle. It suggests a potential shift in how Russia views threats, perhaps.
It certainly raises that possibility. Where do they anticipate needing their most advanced forces in the future?
And this lines up somewhat with analysis from think tanks, doesn't it? I saw the Institute for the Study of War mentioned.
Yes, ISW. They're well respected for their military analysis.
And what's their take?
They also see evidence supporting this idea of a force accumulation near Finland.
Okay.
And they connect it to the broader strategic picture. They suggest it might indicate a shift in Russia's focus.
A shift driven by what?
Possibly by diminishing prospects for a quick or favorable peace settlement in Ukraine.
So if the conflict there looks set to grind on, or the focus shifts?
Then maybe Russia is recalibrating, preparing for a more, let's say, enduring strategic competition, particularly with NATO.
Which would make strengthening defenses along that newly expanded NATO border, like near Finland, a logical, if concerning step from their perspective.
Exactly. The ISW analysis frames it kind of like that, potentially preparing northern defenses for a longer-term standoff.
So pulling this together, what's the main thing for you, for our listeners, to understand from all this?
I think the key takeaway is that we're seeing reported signs of increased military focus and investment in a very strategically sensitive part of Europe.
Not necessarily predicting imminent conflict, but highlighting a definite shift.
Right. The reported buildup, the infrastructure work, the Finnish assessment, the ISW analysis, they all point towards a heightened military emphasis in that region, a region that's undergone huge geopolitical change recently with Finland joining NATO.
Okay, let's summarize quickly then. We've looked at reports from sources like the WSJ detailing a Russian military buildup near Finland. Tanks, equipment, infrastructure upgrades like railways and bases.
We've also touched on the Finnish view that newer tanks might be held back, and how analysts like ISW see this potentially signaling a strategic shift.
A shift perhaps towards a longer-term military posture along its border with NATO, especially as peace hopes in Ukraine fade. It definitely shows the security situation in Europe is still very much evolving.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to consider. Given Finland's NATO membership is still relatively new, what are the potential long-term security implications of these reported Russian actions right on the alliance's doorstep? Something worth keeping a close eye on.